Hi guys, Final Death Star here. Well, I just watched the latest episode of Clone Wars Season 7. I believe it's episode 11, I think now. Yeah, I think it's episode 11. There's 12 total. The last episode, the finale. It's not even the last episode. It's the finale of Clone Wars. And it's going to be dropping on, of course, May the 4th be with you. So I will I'll definitely be doing a video. I don't know, I may even live stream, who knows. It's going to be it's an emotional kind of atmosphere right now with the Clone Wars. This season has been up and down, I'd say. There's been a lot of criticism, and I agree with most of it. The Bad Batch stuff I liked a lot. There was a good opening for the season, good storyline, good characters, and it progressed nicely. The pacing was pretty good. Then they had the middle 4 episodes, which seemed like, Disney's injection of the SJW stuff and pushing, it just was boring. And although Ahsoka was in it, so, you had her, but just the whole story was slow and boring. And it really was filler, I feel like, in a season that needs to be, impacting you every step of the way. But within the last 3 episodes now, I think they really upped the game, and in my opinion, this is like, I think Filoni's now doing what he really wanted to do. I think the sort of middle episodes were more pushed on him, or I think he was pressured into possibly making them. I don't know for sure, but I don't remember. I went to a Star Wars Celebration and a Comic-Con, and I've seen a couple panels with Filoni, and so I got to see some of the unrendered episodes and, some of the ideas that they had when Clone Wars was canceled, and I don't remember anything that dealt with those storylines, so I think that was something that was kind of pushed on him, and, I've seen some of the comments he made recently. And, it was kind of disheartening, because I've been a big Filoni fan, and I still am. But some of the comments were disheartening. He seemed to be kind of, pushing the agenda that we have been vocally opposed to, because it seems like it's forced on you rather than organically developed into a story or through the characters in the story. But that aside, I feel like these last few episodes, this is really what he's been planning. Him and George have been planning all along, and this last episode was really I really liked it a lot. Some of the criticisms I've seen online, the Ahsoka was a little overpowered, and she was a little overpowered because the clones pretty much destroyed all the Jedi that we saw on screen in Revenge of the Sith. Except for Yoda, and then Ahsoka lives. But Ahsoka lives. That was the big hashtag of Rebels. Ahsoka lives. She does live. She's a fan favorite, and she's Anakin's Padawan. So of course she's gonna, she's pretty darn good, and she's pretty darn strong. So I'm willing to give it a pass. The one thing I would say is that she sensed all this stuff happening through the Force, when I think really only probably Yoda was the only other one who got a sense of something was not right. But he couldn't really pinpoint it, but Ahsoka kind of knew when Anakin fell. And you think Obi-Wan should have picked up on that. It's a valid point. Most likely that should have happened. The only thing I would say is that Ahsoka had a different relationship with Anakin than Obi-Wan. Anakin's fall was partly because he didn't trust Obi-Wan. He didn't trust the fact that, the council was, they were keeping him back. They were holding him back from his true potential. And he felt Obi-Wan was betraying him by asking him to spy on Palpatine. There could be a disconnect there where him and Ahsoka never really had any issues for the most part. They trusted each other. So maybe Ahsoka was able to tap into something that Anakin or that Obi-Wan, that wasn't that relation. I don't know. Whatever. I could be just making things up. But, watching it, I thought, Obi-Wan probably should have felt that too, or Yoda, but then again, the connection's not quite the same with them, and So that being said, there is an article here, and this is coming from EW.com, and it's an interview with Dave Filoni. Now, it's going to be Clone Wars and Mandalorian, but I'm just going to focus on the Clone Wars stuff because that's what this video is about, and I'll link the article so you can, by all means, read his thoughts on Mandalorian Season 2. So, but let's get right into it because it's, it's a little in-depth. So, this is just kind of setting the tone of the article. So, all right, here's where it gets interesting. So this is Entertainment Weekly. First off, what excites you about the final 2 episodes of Clone Wars? And Dave Filoni says, I guess that we are bringing this to a close. I find that exciting. I've been through it before with Rebels. It helps frame the rest of the work. It feels like it gives a purpose. For me, it's been 15 years now, and just to apply all that and say, let's do this the best possible way, we can do it. And it seems that's coming across from what people are saying. Again, the last few episodes, yes, I'd say it's coming across. Those middle episodes, not so much. I've had this story in my mind in various versions for a while, so there's something unique about finally putting it down and saying it's done. There are a lot of questions fans have that the final episodes could answer. Which questions are the ones you think are most important for the show to address? And then Filoni says, I was trying to get at answering what Ahsoka's story was about, what Rex's story was about, giving those a shape. George covered Anakin's story in the film, so I've tried to always work in support of that. That's something you don't hear a lot from. See, there's a lot of things I think that Filoni is saying here that validate his passion and how much his regard to not only Star Wars but George, the legacy, how he wants things to fit in, to the best of his ability. And I know he's made mistakes with Mandalorians and the EU. It doesn't always jive. I get that. I get it. But he says enough here that you don't hear this stuff from other people at Lucasfilm. So, just keep that in mind. To me, that says something. That he's caring about this kind of stuff. Okay, so he says, from these other characters that know him and other characters that are around him, while not changing the nature of what George's messaging for Star Wars was in Anakin's path. Again, his path is he's the chosen one. It's not freaking Rey. Those are some key things I had to do in Rebels. Rebels was about just making a story that wound up running into Rogue One, or it wasn't about making a story that ended up running into Rogue One or A New Hope. It was about telling a story about a kid and his family. I'm trying to give a big perspective on the Jedi in this war, that they were fighting, and how the galaxy became an empire. So he's trying to give a greater detail, again, adding those little details, the story within the story. Because we had the episodes 1, 2, 3, and we got the general story. And now here's all the little filler details that enhance those stories. Again, it enhances those stories. Unlike the new movies, Disney Star Wars, in my opinion, that you need the supplemental stories and books and comics to fill in the story or to help finish the story. Clone Wars doesn't do that. Clone Wars adds to it. It's truly supplementing it. It's not giving you the story. It's, which is, again, a huge difference. And it shows the difference in writing between the people who are writing now for the movies and, the ones who were trained under George. When people watch Revenge of the Sith after watching your finale, will they see the film differently in some respects? And Filoni says, I suppose that's inevitable. But there's nothing that I show that wasn't something that I learned from watching the film or from George. Again, huge difference there from what we have been hearing. Rian Johnson, I don't care about I don't care about what's come before. I don't care about anything. This is a big difference. Filoni's, I'm not doing anything that's changing what came before, honoring the legacy. I have that privileged point of view from having worked with him, worked with George. He's again saying, I'm privileged to have worked with him. Do you hear that from anyone else? No, they didn't want anything to do with George. It's disappointing, I'm privy to details other people aren't, but I feel a lot of what I've brought to light is actually already structured in the films themselves, and what is said about the Jedi in the film, and how they begin to believe their ability to use the Force is somehow being limited. That their vision is clouded. Some of the younger and even older Jedis are becoming arrogant. It's all in the dialogue there with Mace, Yoda, and Kai Mundi. There's a nice scene. Some of the recent episode, it's happening at the same time as Revenge of the Sith, so you get to see sort of scenes we're familiar with, but from a different perspective, which is, it's kind of nice, because it's just a few that just enhancing, supplementing what we already know, not taking away, not adding story, just enhancing it. I was always interested in those scenes. I was very interested in what the Jedi were like in this era. So the films are just a real delight for me to watch and rewatch over and over. And then get to work on that time period is really exciting. Have we heard that from the directors recently of these films? I just love watching them over and over and over again. No, we haven't. But Filoni's very vocal about it. So, you gotta respect that. So here we'll go on here. We're now at the point where we're close to ending Revenge of the Sith. We're close to the ending of Revenge of the Sith, and the Clone Wars has definitely avoided showing scenes from the prequels. I'm wondering how you avoid that in these final episodes while making your show still feel complete when it comes to honoring its key characters. I have to be aware of what's happening in time and space around the story I'm telling, given that we are so close, is Filoni saying this. But I don't have a lot of desire to tell any of those scenes necessarily again, unless it's from the point of view of the characters that we need to see it happen. So it's just a challenge not getting something chronologically out of order. Again, caring about what happened before, not screwing things up. Luckily, I've watched those movies a lot, so I think it all works. But yeah, I did some fun things here. Something I've wanted to do for a long time is have an end of the Clone Wars, be this coinciding story that frames some of what weren't in the films, because I think that that alone is a valid question. Where were these guys? Because Ahsoka seemed to be pretty important. Was she invited to join the Sith? Where was Rex during all this? I felt like that needed to be answered, because they were, after so many episodes and stories, obviously such a big part of Anakin and Obi-Wan's life. If there's a big enough, important enough thing going on at the same time, you go, yep, I get that they were busy. And it does make sense, because, you see the Siege of Mandalore, it's like, okay, that's where Ahsoka and Rex were. Obviously, that was a huge thing. They were going after Darth Maul. There was a reason that they were not a part of the Revenge of the Sith movie, the story of Anakin going through that. It's nice. Again, it just supplements it. And then he goes on with about Bad Batch, so I'll let you read that, because that's not exactly, I'm more interested in the last few episodes here. It's been reported that George chimed in on these final episodes, such as the creation of the Bad Batch. What's something that we've seen that he had a specific comment about? And then Filoni says, that's largely been taken out of context in people's enthusiasm. George and I still talk, and I'll ask him some things, but he's just really enjoyed watching them. What's in play are things we had discussed years ago. So he's still basing, even though George isn't so actively involved now, he's still basing these stories on what happened, what they worked on during the initial run of the Clone Wars. So it's still based on George's ideas, although Filoni's in control now, and he still calls him and asks him, as he said, it's still centered around the ideas that they came up with together. There are elements that were always the same, like the Siege of Mandalore. We knew Ahsoka went there to confront Darth Maul. I even had versions of these stories. Because the Clone Wars process got stopped, I didn't think we would ever finish it, but now they get to finish it. So, funny how life works out sometimes. And Anyway, he hadn't really seen anything. He's talking about George Lucas. He hadn't really seen anything until you're releasing it here. I respect him so much, and having worked with him, I just want to make sure I'm getting it right. Again, statements we don't hear from Rian Johnson, or I mean, even JJ, or even when we hear them, because JJ did say that, but it's clear he wasn't really following through, and he would. I don't know. It's just different when it's coming from Filoni. In my opinion, you're free to disagree. I get it, but you put all these statements that he's saying here. It adds up to like I believe this guy. He's not just saying it once, like I really care about the characters and blah blah blah, and then he does something completely different. You could see he's tried to craft, for the most part, tried to craft his stories within the framework of everything that George had already developed. So. That's the article. I will link it below so you guys can check it out. But I just thought it was a nice example of the care that's been taken to try to fit these stories in with what's already been established in a way that doesn't take away from the original prequels, and it also isn't needed to like fill in the story. It helps supplement the story. It gives you a different point of view for characters that were also existing at the same time and why they weren't a part of the story, but it's not filling it in. We weren't missing anything. This is just adding to it. So, Disney, this is the way to do it, in my opinion. So take note. All right, guys, let me know what you think about the recent episodes of Clone Wars. Are you excited for this finale? I really don't know where they're going to take it. I assume Ahsoka's somehow... I don't know. I don't know if she's going to go in hiding like Obi-Wan, or if she's going to somehow be in contact with Mon Mothma and Bail Organa. That would make sense. Seeing where she, as she returns as Fulcrum in Rebels. So... we'll see where it goes, but I'm very excited. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so, so you can make sure you catch my video on the finale of Clone Wars, because I'll give a good extensive review of that as well. So please hit that subscribe button. Until next time, lock the doors and hope they don't have blasters.